Have you ever lost something precious? Not because you didn't know the truth, but because your pride wouldn't let you listen. We all carry that voice inside us, the one that says, I already know. It protects us, yes, but it also blinds us. Pride doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, convincing us that humility is weakness. This is a story about a proud donkey who believed wisdom belonged only to him. One night, under the silver hush of a moonlit field, he ignored a warning that could have saved his life. Beside him, a quiet jackal saw the same danger, but chose silence, patience, and wisdom instead. By the end of this story, you'll understand a truth older than time itself. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the wisest. And sometimes, survival, of peace, of purpose, of spirit, belongs to those who listen before they speak. The donkey was known across the valley for his voice. Every morning his braying echoed through the mist, sharp and confident like a declaration of self. To him, silence was weakness, an admission of fear. He believed that noise meant power, that being heard was the same as being respected. The jackal, on the other hand, walked softly. He moved through the same fields, but left no mark, no sound, no trace of himself. When he spoke, it was only when words could change something. The donkey mocked that restraint. "Why so quiet, old friend?" the donkey teased one dawn. "Are you afraid your thoughts might disappear if you speak them aloud?" The jackal only smiled. "No," he said. "I just know which words are worth the air." The donkey laughed, a loud, self-assured sound that startled the birds from the trees. Days passed. A new farmer came to the valley, laying traps to protect his crops. The air smelled of iron and fear. The jackal saw the danger first, the glint of hidden teeth beneath the grass, but the donkey, proud and unbending, dismissed it. "Another story to keep me still," he scoffed. "You and your endless caution." "Not caution," the jackal replied, "just sight." But sight meant little to a creature convinced he could not be wrong. That night the moon rose again, white and wide as an eye that never blinked. The donkey wandered near the fields, feeling the pull of the same arrogance that had always driven him. He lifted his head and began to sing, a loud, joyous, reckless song to prove that he feared no one, not man, not trap, not fate. "Come," he called to the jackal, "sing with me. Let them hear our strength." But the jackal stayed in the shadows. "Not tonight," he said softly. "Some songs end too soon." The donkey brayed louder, his voice spilling across the still air, until a sound cracked through the dark. The clang of metal, the sudden snap of teeth. In the silence that followed, only the wind moved, the kind of wind that carries regret. The jackal approached slowly, his eyes full of pity, not triumph. The donkey's leg was caught, trembling between two steel jaws. For the first time, pride gave way to panic. "Help me!" the donkey gasped. "You're clever. Say something. Do something." But the jackal said nothing. His silence, once mocked, now stood like wisdom carved in stone. The night stretched long around the trapped donkey. His cries, once so proud, had become small and broken, each echo swallowed by the vast emptiness of the valley. The pain was sharp, but not as sharp as the shame. Every sound he made now only betrayed his helplessness. The jackal watched from the edge of the field, his eyes reflecting the thin light of dawn. He had warned him, twice, yet here the donkey was, caught not by iron, but by his own voice. When he finally spoke, it was not with anger. "Do you remember," said the jackal quietly, "what I told you about silence?" The donkey shuddered. "You speak of silence while I bleed." "I speak of survival," the jackal replied. The donkey groaned, pulling against the trap. "Then help me! Use your cleverness! Bite it open! Call for others!" But the jackal shook his head. "Noise brought this. Noise will bring worse." The donkey's breath grew heavy. "Then what do I do?" "Be still," the jackal said. "When morning comes, men will come to check their traps. If they hear you, they will finish what iron began. If not, they might pass you by. The wind will be your cloak, your silence, your only chance." It was the simplest advice he had ever heard, and the hardest to follow. The donkey's pride fought back. He had lived by sound. Sound had been his armor. Now, silence was his only tool, his only hope. He wanted to curse it, to fight it, but even that could kill him. So, for the first time in his life, he closed his mouth. He listened to the rustle of dry grass, the hum of the night insects, the soft shifting of the jackal's paws nearby. Each sound, once beneath his notice, now felt sacred, alive. The world was speaking, but he had never heard it before. As dawn approached, the light touched the field in slow gold strokes. The donkey's leg throbbed, but the men never came. His silence, his surrender, had made him invisible. The trap that should have ended him became the teacher that began him. When the jackal finally stepped forward, he said only this: "You have learned more in one night of silence than in a lifetime of noise." The donkey closed his eyes, humbled not by pain, but by the truth that wisdom had been beside him all along, waiting for him to quiet down enough to listen. When morning came, the valley breathed again. Mist curled between the grasses, soft as mercy. The trap was still there, but the danger had passed. The farmer's footsteps never came. The donkey opened his eyes to the faint warmth of the sun and the steady gaze of the jackal. The pain had not vanished, but something inside him had shifted, like a locked gate finally unlatched. "I didn't call," he whispered. "Not once." The jackal nodded. "Then you've already begun to heal." The donkey watched the world in silence. Every sound that once demanded his reply, the buzzing flies, the distant crow, the whisper of wind, now arrived as lessons, not interruptions. The world, he realized, had always been teaching him. He'd just been too loud to hear it. With effort, the jackal helped loosen the trap, freeing the donkey's swollen leg. It was a slow, patient process, the kind that required trust rather than pride. When the steel finally fell away, the donkey did not roar in victory. He only bowed his head, grateful, grounded. As they walked away from the field, the jackal spoke one last time. "Wisdom doesn't always speak, my friend. Sometimes it waits." The donkey looked toward the horizon, where light met earth, quiet and endless. For the first time, he understood that silence was not emptiness. It was space, space for truth to enter, for humility to grow, for wisdom to take root. He walked slower now, softer, each step a prayer of newfound grace. The story of the donkey and the jackal is not about animals. It is about us, about the noise we make when we are afraid of being unseen, unheard, or unimportant. We call it confidence, we call it passion, but often it's just the sound of ego trying not to drown in its own fear. The donkey's voice was never evil. It was his defense. His noise was his way of saying, "I matter." But, like many of us, he confused expression with understanding. He believed being right was the same as being wise, and being loud was the same as being strong. What he didn't see, until the trap closed around him, was that strength without humility is a fragile mask. One hit, one failure, one moment of truth, and it cracks. The jackal represents a different kind of intelligence, the wisdom that comes from listening. His silence wasn't passivity, it was precision. He knew that some truths don't need to be shouted, they simply need to be lived. In modern life, our traps are rarely made of metal. They're built from pride, from the hunger to prove, from the refusal to pause before speaking. We are surrounded by platforms that reward volume over value, and so we speak, endlessly, defensively, fearfully, until the sound of our own voice becomes a cage. The story asks us a quiet question. When was the last time you truly listened, without preparing your reply? Silence, when chosen consciously, is not weakness, it's alignment. It means stepping back far enough to see what ego hides. The jackal didn't need to prove he was smarter. He didn't need the world to agree with him. That's why he survived. True wisdom, like true peace, doesn't demand recognition. It simply endures. If you think of the donkey again, lying in that field, trapped by noise, you may see yourself in him. Perhaps not in the arrogance, but in the fear of stillness. The fear that if you stop talking, if you stop proving, the world might forget you. But silence does not erase you. It refines you. When you pause before reacting, you gain the distance that ego fears most. Perspective. When you stop insisting on being right, you make room for understanding. And when you listen, truly listen, you stop living as an echo and become an origin. The donkey's transformation wasn't about learning to be quiet for the sake of quiet. It was about learning to hear for the first time. The sound of the wind, the hum of life around him, the voice of the jackal. Those were all lessons speaking in a language he had ignored. The wisdom is simple, yet most people spend a lifetime resisting it. Ego wants to be seen. Wisdom wants to see. That is why the jackal survived, and why his silence was not surrender, it was mastery. He understood that words can guide, but silence can guard. He didn't save the donkey by shouting, he saved him by letting the silence teach what pride never could. And so, the next time you find yourself in an argument, in a rush to be understood, or desperate to prove your worth, pause. Ask yourself, am I speaking to connect or to protect my pride? Because wisdom often hides in the moments we resist the most, the pauses between words, the breath before response, the decision to listen when ego wants to speak. The donkey's voice once echoed across the valley, but his silence, in the end, carried farther. So, here's the question only you can answer. When was the last time your silence could have spoken louder than your words? Maybe it was an argument that spiraled because you needed to be right. Maybe it was advice you ignored because it came from someone quieter than you. Or maybe, like the donkey, you mistook volume for value and learned too late that peace begins where pride ends. Tonight, try this. Before reacting, pause. Let one breath of silence stand between impulse and reply. You'll be amazed how often wisdom lives inside that single, unspoken moment. Because life will always offer two choices, to shout or to listen, to win the noise or to understand the truth beneath it. Only one of them leads to peace. If this story found you at the right time, tell me, what truth are you ready to listen to now? And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, like, share, and subscribe. Let's remind each other that silence, chosen with love, is not the absence of strength. It's the beginning of it.